If you're looking to get into cybersecurity, we've got a free level 2 qualification for you. You must live outside London. Link in bio. In the struggling job market, 2 sectors that seem to both be doing all right: finance and tech. Today, we've got a steamy debate. What's a better career, tech or finance? In the left corner, we have Cyber Daniela. Introduce yourself.
Hi guys, I'm Daniela. I go by Cyber Daniela. I'm a site reliability engineer who actually transitioned from law. I went to university and studied law, realized it wasn't for me, and then did a bootcamp to transition into tech. I started off as a data analyst, and now I work as a site reliability engineer, fully remote, earning 6 figures.
And in the right corner, we have Luca.
My name is Luca, sometimes known as Luca Big Four Apprentice. I started an apprenticeship role around 2 years ago at a Big Four company in accountancy. I remember stepping into my role, I didn't really have much direction. I just wanted to get my foot in the door. So I started. 2 years later down the line now, I've progressed in my role, I've become senior. And I also do content creation alongside my role because one of my biggest passions is seeing students succeed. So I started posting on social media, teaching people how to break into roles, teaching people how to break into finance. On top of my role, on top of my social media, I love speaking opportunities. I've gone to multiple conferences across the UK. I've spoken at schools across the UK. And recently I was honored to be invited to 10 Downing Street to meet the Prime Minister as honestly, I was speechless. It was a fantastic opportunity.
I'll ask a question then, straight up the jump.
All right.
What's a better career, tech or finance?
Tech.
Finance.
Why do you say tech?
Tech is an ever-evolving landscape. I feel as though tech careers give you more leverage, whilst finance is just more so associated with prestige. I don't think that tech actually pays less than finance, as most people generally think, especially when you factor in things like specializations within tech and contracting, which is something that I have experience in.
Great points from Daniela, but I think finance ultimately is the looked up to role, the looked up to industry when it comes to breaking into the corporate space. I mean, the ladder and how you can climb it within finance, I think is like no other. If you look at some of the top roles, investment banking, accountancy, private equity, you can start your way as an entry level, climb your way up to these roles such as managing director, you've got the partner roles in accountancy. These roles pay ridiculous sums. In comparison to tech, I just don't think you see that prestigiousness as much as you see it within finance. There's certain roles in finance, if you look at investment banking, for example. I know this is...
I do hear his point though, because when it comes to prestige, right, you look at investment banking, private equity. When I think of tech, I don't really associate prestige. I think of some guy in his couch doing some edits.
You know what? And that's perfectly fine, but not everybody wants to climb the corporate ladder. I do think that a lot of people's reasons for wanting to go into finance or even law is to have that prestige, right? And I completely get it. But is your prestige reflected in your bank account and how much you're earning? Only to a certain extent can you say it does. Let's take the example of an investment banking analyst. I'm pretty sure like within the first 2 years, they're on like what, 50K, right? Something like that, roughly.
Bonuses.
I earn their bonuses in a month, respectfully. So I yeah. I do think it's a nuanced topic. Don't get me wrong. Like both careers are great, but I do think like when we're talking about prestige, I do think it's kind of to do with elitism. The reason why people think that finance and law careers have so much prestige. I definitely think that there's a corrupt side to finance and law that no one likes to talk about. Don't get me wrong.
What is that corrupt side?
Okay, let's actually talk about hours, right? You are so big on talking about prestige in terms of finance, but when you look at the hours that a lot of people are doing in finance, especially in roles like obviously IB, even PE, I do hear that PE is a bit more flexible. When you work out the hourly rate, in calculation of what you're earning as a whole, it's actually not really worth it. I'm someone who works fully remote. I have very flexible hours and it's very chill. Like I feel as though that we don't talk about how toxic and how depreciating it can be to someone's mental health, especially young, impressionable people to work in these careers all for the sake of prestige.
Would you not argue that when you're in a role like finance, although you work very long, you can work very long hours, the pay does not make up for it? I mean, if you're looking at some of the top roles again in finance, investment banking, private
I
equity.
actually hate when people say that. I actually hate when people say, oh, but the pay. What's the point of earning that much money, being burnt out, if you can't even enjoy the money you're spending?
I mean,
by
look,
the time Friday comes, you're basically crashed out. Like, you've basically been exhausted. There's been multiple incidents. Wasn't there an incident recently, or I don't want to say really recently, but I'm pretty sure it was at one of the big four, where a young colleague actually died because he had like heart issues as a result of, you know, not having the right rest, not having the right sleep. So when we talk about these type of things, I think it's very important to be very cautious of the fact that, you know, the hours actually do have an effect on people physically, mentally. So can you really say it's worth it in terms of the pay?
It is very sad to hear those people that have struggled and been through issues with their health relating to their work. And my condolences go out to all of them. I think the thing is, you're focusing here very much on the negative aspect of it. Of course, the hours are going to be tiring, but a lot of people that go into finance and these prestigious roles in accountancy will know that when it comes to these roles, the hours are going to be demanding. What you're missing is that, yes, you're saying, oh, you might not be able to enjoy the money, you earn all this money, but when are you actually supposed to spend the money, right? But a lot of people can go into these roles and then move out after. You can make, a lot of people see, they go into investment banking, they make their 6 figures, they make their 100K, 200K, and then they dip out.
The exit opportunities.
Exactly. Because when you start as entry level, the salary is very good in comparison to something like tech. To climb up the tech ladder, reach way up to those 6-figure marks, it's probably going to take you a lot longer than in comparison to something like finance.
2 years. How about that?
All right, cool. So who's having more fun?
Ooh, I don't know. What do you consider fun?
Like you mentioned earlier that work-life balance is an absolute nightmare. I've seen Luca on TikTok almost in tears discussing about how hard it is to do your role. So like, would you argue that you're having more fun than Luca?
Oh, I'm definitely having more fun. I'm fully remote, so I definitely don't have to deal with commuting. I don't have to deal with office politics. I don't have to deal with, you know, just the corporate environment really in that sense anyways. I definitely think though, it can get very boring if you don't have a good routine. So as someone who is fully remote, there are days where I'm just like, damn, I've just been in this same room, sitting at this same desk for how long? However, I think I've been able to work on enjoying my life and enjoying like my career by actually investing in my hobbies, by actually going to different places, traveling, and actually rewarding myself. The other day, I passed a technical exam and I got myself a Chanel bag, because why not? So, yeah. I
So you allow me to put me a Chanel?
I celebrate myself and, you know, I get to enjoy my life. And I don't think that type of flexibility is something you can really find in finance, respectfully.
Do you concur?
I completely disagree with that. Oh, completely disagree. I mean, firstly, I want to touch on your point, Austin. You said I was almost in tears on my social media page, which is true, but it wasn't entirely down to the role. In fact, it wasn't really to do with my role, actually. That was more so just juggling the pressure of life, of juggling the pressure of exam stress, and then obviously my actual hobbies and things were just, it was all piling up on me. So that's what actually nearly brought me to tears, not the role itself. Touching on your point, you're saying, oh, in finance, you don't really have the time to do other things, but that's just not true. Mm-hmm. Other than my day job, I do so many things in the community to help them grow, to help students grow. I've been to numerous events. I spoke at conferences across the UK. I've helped students at different events. I've public spoke. I've even come on podcasts. I run my social media page, and yet I'm in accounting and finance. So how can you then say you don't have the time to do things in finance?
Well, everything you're doing is to do with, obviously, all you create on TikTok, and in terms of like being a early career content creator.
Did I mention I met the Prime Minister the other day?
Oh, wow.
I think the point she's making though is that that's all work related. Which is just
that's what I'm saying.
I think she's saying that.
What do you do outside of work? And that's not linked to everything you're doing in terms of social media. How do you actually get to enjoy the fruits of your labor?
I mean, to be honest, I think that's all personal preference, right? I'm someone who likes to do things that are work related.
Okay.
When you see these things like public speaking or going to conferences, going to events, and it to a lot of people it might be labeled as work, but to me that is a hobby. I love seeing students win. I love helping people.
Yeah.
It's great to see people win. So that for me, that's what I flourish on. I enjoy that sort of thing.
That's a very good PR answer.
So who's making more money?
Come on now. This one he's not gonna win. Like,
Wait, so who's making more money?
Okay. Daniela, how old are you?
I'm 24.
Okay, how old am I?
How old are you?
I'm 20.
Okay.
Exactly.
Is that
so
fair?
It's not really a fair comparison anyways. But when I was 23, or when I was actually 22, turning 23, I was already on about 60K.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Honestly, I think...
So I think my question is then, so obviously, 4 years older, 4 years or senior, 6 figures, apprentice. But the question I'm asking here then is, when you're 24, do you see yourself on her salary?
I think
No,
her...
it's not
Firstly, her salary... I want to give...
You say it's not happening.
But,
You say it's not happening.
I'm going to give massive credits to Daniela. She is doing a phenomenal job. Like, it's brilliant. She's making a lot of money. She's doing her thing. She's doing the whole community proud, the black community proud. It's brilliant to see. I love it. I think there is a possibility I could reach to that sort of level, her salary. But
solely from your work, by the way.
Solely from work. I mean,
Really?
At 24?
At 24. I think...
You see yourself on a 6-figure salary at 24?
I'm not saying I definitely see myself there, but it's definitely... It's a possibility. I mean, look. You can...
You side there. Why do you disagree with that?
Do you know what it is? I don't know too much about what you're doing in terms of audit, and your career can definitely change. I know mine did, and that's another thing that I want to talk about. Tech is very fluid compared to finance. I started off as a data analyst. I'm now a site reliability engineer. 2 completely different careers, right? So I understand how to kind of be flexible, and I've kind of built my career in a way where I've specialized in loads of different things. But going back to the point that I was about to raise, I do think when it comes to a lot of finance roles, I don't think they're as fluid. So someone like yourself who's in audit, I don't know myself too much about the audit space, but people who are 24 in audit, are they actually on 6 figures within your firm?
Okay, they're not.
Okay.
At 24, it's very unlikely you'll be near 6 figures. Progression at the Big Four, progression in audit is pretty linear.
Okay.
So you're not, at that sort of stage, it'll be very unlikely you reach that level.
Yeah.
The thing is, right, not everyone stays in audit.
Yeah.
The thing is with audit, right, it's people, I see a lot of shade thrown onto the role because people class it as boring. People class it as not that exciting. There might be other things within finance to do, right? But what people will miss when it comes to audit, right, is the opportunities that come from doing the role. Let's think about it. You are an apprentice. You're 18 years old, fresh out of sixth form. You have no qualification, or you have a small amount of qualifications, being your A-levels and GCSEs. You've been thrown into a massive corporation. You're in potentially one of the biggest accounting firms in the world if you get into one of the larger ones. And then you're going to get 4 years experience there, and you're going to get an ACA qualification, one of the most prestigious qualifications in finance. There is a lot of leverage there. You're coming out at 21, 22, being able to move across finance. I spoke to someone, he's a graduate. He's done something similar to me because the graduate program is very similar to the apprenticeship program. One just starts earlier. He's telling me he's got his experience. He's finished his qualification. He's fully qualified. He's moved into M&A advisory, mergers and acquisitions from the Big Four. So these are the opportunities you can get. Yes, you might not get that big boy salary whilst you're in audit, but there's opportunities moving around.
But then what I really dislike about finance in terms of the industry is this reliance on exit opportunities. The reason why I love tech is that we don't have that sort of thinking. It's really a case of upskilling, getting specialized in loads of different technologies and using that as leverage to get a higher salary. And that's what I did. So I don't really think finance really takes the cake here when it comes to this topic, because we're relying on hypotheticals when we're talking about exit opportunities. Whereas with tech, there's facts, there's certifications, there's accreditations that you can get that will soft launch you into those 6-figure brackets.
How can you call 4 years experience at a massive accountancy firm a hypothetical in terms of moving around? Do you not almost see that as a guarantee if you get that experience?
No, I don't see it as a guarantee.
You're telling me now, right? Let's go where there's a big role that's been put out, right? Mm-hmm. And an employer is going to choose between someone who's doesn't really have much experience and is just gone to university. Let's say they've got a 2-1 qualification, and someone else has got 4 years experience within accountancy and fully qualified. Who do you think's most likely going to get the role?
Naturally, the person who has more experience will get the role, but I don't see how that has to do with my point of exit opportunities and relying on that. Like, take yourself for example. You've got loads of ambition, which is always good to see as a young black boy. But at the same time, you also have to be realistic, as do I, as does Austin, as does everybody, right? So when you're relying on exit opportunities, I really don't think it makes sense to really kind of put all your eggs in one basket in terms of that mentality, because I definitely think that finance just doesn't offer that same type of flexibility that tech does. Like, we don't have to rely on exit opportunities in tech. We rely on the market, on the way things move, on how cloud technologies emerge, how AI has emerged.
No, agreed.
I don't think finance really has that same setup.
No, I 100% agree. I think tech is definitely much more flexible in that sense. It's very adapting to the world now. It's forever changing. So I definitely agree with you on that.
So I win that point. Thank you.
So my next question is then, and I want to narrow into both of you guys. So let's start with finance. Obviously, that's a big sector. You've got all sorts of investment banking, mergers and acquisitions, audit, financial admin, accountancy. What areas within finance would you say is just not worth it?
I don't think there's...
So would you say like financial admin is worth it? Like, what sector would you say like it's just not worth going into?
I don't think there's a single role that's not worth it. But I don't think there's...
So what do you think is the least worth it then?
Good. That's a better question. I think it's solely it's not an objective answer in that. So I don't think there's an objective.
No, I'm
answer
asking for your opinion, Luca. What do you think is the least worth it in
Luca
finance
loves
roles?
to
There's no objective answer to this. It's
So if you had kids, right? You had kids, and he can go into any sector within finance. Which one do you tell him to avoid?
None. Completely dependent on the
Really?
individual, because different individuals have different goals,
Yes.
different aspirations, different places they want to reach.
Yeah.
And that could be from any sort of role in finance. If there's a role in finance that tailors more to their skills and the goals and the places they want to reach in the future, go for it. It's not going to be something, avoid that.
But I think that sounds good in like fantasy, but in terms of progression, which roles are like the least likely to see progression in?
Again, there's...
Which roles are least most likely to get taken over by AI? All these kind of... We've got to think about all these things as well.
That's
right?
a good question. I think there's the roles that are very systemized and that will require basic human input. I think those roles are the ones that you should be cautious of in terms of...
What are the labels for those?
I mean, a lot of roles across accounting, there's a big threat to accounting. It's all across the news now, right? That accounting, there's a threat, AI might come in, step in, so be careful. You might not want to go down that path. So I'd say generally across accounting, there's a lot of roles that, are going to be slowly taken over by AI. Yeah. But the thing is, they won't ever be fully taken over by AI because you need people to man that AI. You need people to do the more, people to man those areas that are more subjective, that require more judgmental, critical thinking, because AI doesn't have that critical thinking, emotional intelligence that humans do. And a lot of accountancy, a lot of roles, even like audit, they're not objective. So you need that human judgment when you do it. So I don't think there's going to be a single role that will be completely taken over by AI anywhere in the near future.
So question for you then, which roles would you avoid in a tech sector like the plague? Like just don't touch it, not go near it. What would you say?
I think it definitely does boil down to your interests and to your goals. For me, I'm someone who's quite technical. I wouldn't really necessarily go into projects management. It's a great field to be in, don't get me wrong, but it also comes with a lot of responsibility. You're basically babysitting adults. And also a lot of PMs aren't as technical, which means when they're speaking to devs, when they're speaking to technical teams, they're not able to digest any of the things that they're saying. Obviously, you can get technical PMs, don't get me wrong, but I just think like having to have the bare brunt of an entire project on your shoulders and having to be responsible for that is not something I could mentally do. But in terms of like roles that are of value and roles that I don't really see as being of value, I'm going to be a bit controversial here and say I wouldn't necessarily go into
coding?
data analytics.
What about coding?
I code, Luca. What do you mean?
What do you mean?
I mean, there is no disrespect to coders. I think it is an incredible skill to be able to code. But are we not seeing a big influx of AI in terms of taking over how the coding world operates?
No.
Do you wanna add your 2 pence on that?
Yeah, I will, because I'm a site reliability engineer. I code, but the reason why AI can't take over my job is because a lot of the things that I do is very incident response focused. A lot of the things that I do is something that AI can't simply do. Let me ask you a question, actually. Do you happen to know the difference between generative AI and agentic AI? Because I feel as though when people talk about AI taking over roles, I want to actually understand what sort of AI they're talking about.
No. Would you like to explain, Daniela?
Generative AI produces content, whereas agentic AI tries to mimic human beings. An agent, literally, kind of what you were explaining earlier on, the emotional side of things, and trying to do multiple different tasks. That's something that is being very big in the tech space recently. And I actually find it funny when people kind of bring up AI and coding, because actually at my workplace, we're actually encouraged to use AI to streamline our work. The agentic models that we use aren't necessarily...
So do you think that streamlining will then eventually become just move?
My job isn't purely coding, and a software engineer's job isn't purely coding. I think a lot of people see software engineers and think that's literally all they do. And when we're talking about coding, we need to be very careful of what specifically we're talking about here, because there are people who work more front end. Front end developers, I'd say, are more at risk, only because the coding languages that they use are very mimicable, if that's even a word, compared to like back-end engineers like myself. So again, it can be a bit of a nuanced topic, but I think when it comes to coding is just a skill, right? You can code, you could possibly code, anybody could code. So it's all about everything that you have to offer outside of just coding that is more important, and that will probably protect you and make your career more future-proof when it comes to AI.
So I want to get into that conversation in just a moment. But I've got a question for you then before we round off. In 2026, what careers within tech are not worth it anymore?
I'd say being a data analyst, I wouldn't really waste my time doing that. Try and be a data scientist or a data engineer instead.
But why?
Because data analytics is... it's kind of obviously in between. Okay, so let me just give a brief kind of lesson. So you've got data engineers, they build everything before it gets sorted. Like when I say build everything, I mean databases, tables, schemas. They're the ones who are actually like engineering data, engineering the work. And they're focused on like the very beginning of data. Data scientists, they're focused on the future, and they use AI. And actually, going back to what we were saying about AI is actually creating a lot more jobs than people think, because when you think of data scientists, they tend to use machine learning, they train models, and they use AI in their day-to-day, and they engineer AI. And you've got machine learning engineers, you've got AI engineers, and then data analysts, they're in the middle. A lot of the things they do are very commercial focused. They're just running reports on Excel. They do use SQL and Python, and they can use other technical tools. But the reason why I'd avoid being a data analyst is because, number one, there's a ceiling in terms of salary. I've noticed that in the UK, especially, data analyst roles just don't really tend to pay well. And number two, in terms of skill set, I think it's definitely more valuable to be a data engineer or a data scientist as opposed to a data analyst. The tools that they use are very, like, I wouldn't say redundant, but it's just a bit basic. And a lot of junior data analyst roles are far and few in between now, because if there is an area of tech that's being taken over by AI, is all these junior admin-like roles in tech. So, yeah.
So, great segue then. Who's finance tech? Who's more at risk of getting taken over by AI? Which sector between tech and finance is more at risk of...
Finance.
Is AI a bigger threat for?
Finance. How? Yeah, I don't think that's even really a debate, because finance, the tech, the people in tech, the people who have the skills to man the tech, to navigate the technology, will ultimately be the winners. I mean, as much as look at the people like Elon Musk, right? They're capitalizing on the use of tech within their companies, within their business. These are the people who are going to be successful in the long term. In terms of getting taken over, I think those are going to be the winners ultimately.
Do you think you're at risk?
I don't think I'm at risk. No, I don't think I'm at risk, because I feel like I've got in at a very good time, because I didn't get in too late. Whereas I've now built up quite a good amount of technical knowledge. So if someone then came to me and said, Luca, I want you to just man the AI, I think I'd be able to do that. Luca, I want you to take on all the judgmental parts of the role. I think I'd be able to do that. People coming in a bit later, let's say 5, 10 years down the line, it's going to be very difficult to have that long-term, the longevity in your role, because you might not have that technical knowledge and be able to keep up with that AI, with the AI influx.
Yep. And my next question is, whose exams are more difficult? Tech exams or finance exams?
This one is, I'll give this one to finance, to be honest. Only because in tech, there are different types of certifications and exams that you can do, and their difficulty will vary. I'm sure it's the same in finance, but in tech, a lot of the exams that are done are very like short form exams for the most part. Like I have a Google Cloud associate cert. That was a bit more hands-on in terms of studying and revising for it. But I can't compare it to what's that thing they do in finance? CFA?
CFA.
Yeah.
Let's talk about CFA actually. The CFA, finance has some of the most hardest and some of the most prestigious qualifications out of any industry. Very well said from Daniela. I think if you look at the CFA, right, there is a 40% pass mark. What exam do you see that has a 40% pass mark? It's crazy how difficult it is to get through those exams. And not only do you have the CFA, which is a very prestigious qualification, you have the likes of the ACA, the CIMA, the ACCA, all these qualifications that are just globally recognized. I mean, if you take an ACA qualification or an ACCA qualification anywhere across the world, I'm talking Dubai, I'm talking Asia, I'm talking Africa, and you show them, look, I've worked here and I've got this ACA qualification, they're going to be like, wow. They will know it. Yeah. They will know it.
So your exams are more difficult than tech exams?
I can't speak from a tech perspective, but from my perspective, I know that the finance accounting exams are very difficult.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because they require like 6 to 12 months of study, whereas a lot of tech exams, there are some that do also require 6 to 12 months of study, but a lot of the exams can be done on a whim, especially if you already work in that space and you work using that technology. Like if you're getting an AWS cert and you already use AWS, passing that exam is not going to be as hard, and there are different AWS certs you will do. Whereas the ACCA, the CFA, I know that it's just one kind of big exam, right? It's not like tech where you've got these technologies, but you've got subset of like exams you can do. So I'll give this one to Luca.
So while we're here, can you break down how much do investment bankers earn in the UK in the different stages?
I want to clarify, I'm not in investment banking. I just have a lot of friends and people I know who work in investment banks and in investment banking roles. So I'm going to speak from what I've learned from them. They tell me, right, it can vary from company to company. There is big pay differences because certain large companies can pay lots of money. I mean, if you enter in as an analyst, you're looking at, sorry, is it analyst or associate first? It's analyst first. It's definitely analyst first. Okay, just wanted to clarify before I say anything. Okay. If you enter as an analyst, you're looking at between, I want to say 50 to 60K flat. You got your bonus as well. That can go up to 70%. I mean, that's just starting off. You climb your way up. You can move then up to 100, 150, 200. I mean, directors, managing directors can be looking at over 300, 350,000 pounds in the UK. And if you, that's just the UK. I mean, if you look at United States, a lot of people go to US, New York, where the finance district is. There, you're with a very good amount of experience, you can be making in the millions.
And what are the top 5 finance qualifications in the UK?
That's a good question, Austin. I'm going to say the CFA is the top qualification. I think it's very prestigious, very challenging, which makes it a great qualification because not many people can get through. So if you get that, brilliant. ACA qualification, I'd put second. It's fantastic qualification. Gives you a lot of options, internationally recognized. Prestigious. Third, I'm going to say the ACCA, a brilliant qualification again. Fourth, a derivatives qualification, some form of credit, risk, insurance qualifications. I put them at number 4. And then something more like the CIMA, I'd put number 5. That's more management accounts. Argued as less prestigious than the ACA, ACCA, but I think that's all subjective, right? So
I'm going to spark another debate then. I'll bring you in again. Who's having a bigger impacts on the world, right? Because from what I've seen, it seems like in finance, you're just looking, observing the world. You're not actually creating anything. Whereas in tech, you're actually creating the future.
It's tech,
So
no doubt.
who's having the bigger impact on the world, finance or tech?
It will be tech. It will always be tech.
Do you agree with that?
You can't agree with that if you have an iPhone, or you can't disagree with that if you have an iPhone. You can't disagree with that if you're using the internet.
Yeah, tech.
So all these people that are getting these millions of pounds in private equity in investment banking, why are they getting paid that money if they're literally providing no impact?
I mean, Austin, that's a interesting question, because I mean, if you look at the way the world works, right, it's not always down to impact in terms of your salary. I mean, footballers, incredible skill to have to be a footballer, right? But then you've got players like that can be earning around £100,000 a week, £300,000 a week. Yes, they're making a brilliant impact on people's lives. Of course, football's great; it's a great sport. But then you look at someone who's working in the NHS. How much impact do they make in times like COVID? They're working late hours. We're talking 14-hour shifts plus, and yet they don't get paid anywhere near someone like a footballer, right? So are we going to say, okay, we should then plunge more money into the NHS to pay them more and more and more money, so then they're level to a footballer because of impact? That's not how the world works. I'd love the world to work like that, but it's just not how the world works.
Isn't it a bit empty though, knowing that you're in a sector that isn't really having any impact?
I guess it can be seen as empty, but I think it's always down to the individual, right? Some people just like the money. People love money. A lot of people, it's what make the world go round. You say that all the time, Austin. So it's great. Finance can make a lot of money for some people. Other people, like myself, enjoy the hustle of working in finance. But then I guess to then reach that level of fulfillment and feeling like I'm making an impact, I like doing things outside of work as well. That's always an option. I work my 9 to 5. I come home after 5 o'clock. I'm filming TikTok straight away. I'm going to speak at conferences. If someone emails me and says, Luca, come speak at a conference, I'm there in a second. If someone asks me, come speak at an event, come help out these students, I'm going to be there in a second. So of course, yes, finance itself sometimes might not make a big impact on society, but there's so many other ways you can do.
But you've made that impact as a result of your career in finance, but it's impacted people. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but what Luca's saying is like the impacts you've had is obviously in terms of like the brand you've created on TikTok, the way you help students, the way you are so big in the early career space. But that's like off the back of working in finance.
Okay.
But in terms of like core impact, kind of like what Austin was kind of asking about, what does that look like for you?
I think it's difficult to make an impact on society solely working in finance. I completely agree. I think it can be difficult. There are certain roles that can make an impact on a positive impact on the world. I mean, if you look at something like consulting, advisory, big firms, or sometimes even individual clients, they need things. They want things. They could be clients. Sorry, Austin. They could be clients like environmental clients, people that are helping the environment, and you're advising them on how they can better the environment. The finances behind bettering the environment, ESG targets. These are sort of ways you can still contribute to society in finance.
From what I've seen, though, most investment banks don't even beat the market. It sounds like a scam to me. But anyway, Daniela, we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to you now. So I've got a few questions for you. Cool. So if you could start over again, so you're 24 years old on an amazing salary, 6-figure salary, working as a software engineer. If you could start all over again, what would you do?
I will definitely do more research. When I picked data analyst, when I decided to become a data analyst,
So I mean, like, what steps would you take? So like, if somebody else was to replicate your steps to get to where you are, what would they do from step one to step?
Okay, so I definitely think I've talked about this on my TikTok. Cloud technologies. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a data analyst, you're a software engineer, or you're even non-technical, like a projects manager or business analyst. Learn cloud technologies. You can pick either AWS, Google Cloud, or Microsoft Azure, but just be in the know when it comes to cloud, because a lot of the roles that I'm seeing nowadays, a lot of the contracts that I'm seeing nowadays, they focus a lot on cloud principles, on cloud knowledge. So I would definitely make that a priority. There's loads of different resources out there that you can use to learn a cloud technology. And I would also say, I wouldn't say try and specialize, because I don't really like to give the advice of shoehorning yourself so early on in your career, but you should be in the know. Like, I study job descriptions. Like, even when I'm employed, like right now, I'm still on Indeed, I'm still on LinkedIn, and I'm still on Reed, all of these different job boards, because I like to actually study what recruiters want to see more of. Tech is an ever-evolving landscape, like I said at the beginning. So you just need to be in the know, and you need to keep up to date with what's in demand and with where the market is moving. So make sure you're constantly immersing yourself in the space of tech. Go to events, go to different webinars, listen to different podcasts like these, like this one. Just be in the know. I think that's one thing I would advise anybody who's considering working in tech to do. Like, just be in the know from the beginning.
Do you recommend online courses?
Yeah, I did an online course. I did a boot camp with Code First Girls. That's how I became a data analyst. It was free and it was sponsored by another company. They work with tons of different companies such as NatWest, Barclays. So it's definitely worthwhile doing an online course. Even the government offers free funded digital skills boot camps as well. Austin even talked about cybersecurity at the start. So take advantage of online courses. It's free learning. I don't see why you would be lazy in that sense, or why you wouldn't take advantage of opportunities like that.
Yeah, cool. My final debate style question: tech sales versus investment banking. Which one wins?
Tech sales.
Tech sales versus investment
I don't
banking.
even like tech sales. Let me not.
But if you had to the arguments in the two, which one do you think?
Okay, I'm the last person to defend tech sales people, but what I will say is the commission they get goes crazy sometimes. And I do think tech sales is more of an easier career. I don't think it takes much skill except for being confident and knowing how to speak to people to work in tech sales. Whereas finance, you need the accreditations, you need the knowledge, you need the blah, blah. Tech sales is literally just selling. You just happen to sell software.
So you think that outcompetes investment banking?
Yeah, it could, yeah.
What do you think?
How much can you make in tech sales?
It can really vary. Obviously, if you're an SDR, you're not going to make as much as someone who's like a solutions engineer, for example. A solutions engineer can earn well into the 6-figure range. And don't forget that commission, like it is uncapped sometimes. So it can really be a lot of earning potential in these spaces.
I think tech sales is a fantastic career. I've always heard great things about it, and like how the earning potential is almost uncapped. But despite that, I still think that investment banking, I'm not investment banking myself again, but I think that the cap, the limit you can reach in investment banking goes well beyond tech sales, right? But I mean, look, 10, 15 years in investment banking will get you way, way over 6 figures, closer to 7 figures, if anything. So I just don't think you can reach those levels in really any role in tech.
You know, you just reminded me of something that I've been meaning to bring up in this debate. The reason why I think tech will always win is finance, for example. Like with tech, with what I do, I have a limited company. I could run my own one-man show or two-man show. I could run my own consultancy and outsource some of my work. I don't see how someone in IB could do the same. I think one thing I appreciate about the tech space is that entrepreneurship that you can kind of delve into as a result of obviously working in that career. Like, name me an investment banking analyst that runs their own firm.
Okay, you've said investment banking analyst, and you have a big focus on investment banking, but there are other roles across finance where you can do something similar. I know I've heard of so many people who have worked in accountancy, got their ACA qualification, and then started their own little high street accounting firm. I know a girl, she's called Grace Hardy. She was a previous accountant. She got qualified, started Hardy's Accounting, her own accounting firm, right? There is, again, investment banking.
Is it to the same level though?
Okay, I'll get onto that. Investment banking as well, right? There are so many skills you'd learn at the likes of the large corporations, right? A lot of skills that you can then transfer across, right? So let's say you've been trading investment banking for 10 years. You're going to know those markets very well. You can then become that person that just use the markets for themselves. Who, if you're not doing the role, obviously there's conflicts there, but if you go in solo, you can just run the markets yourself, take all the profit.
But how common is that to see though?
Very
to
common.
Tech?
Very common.
I don't think it's as common as tech,
Yeah.
especially when you consider contracting, which is literally, especially if you're outside IL-35 and you're literally running your own business, you're more or less like taking home way more money compared to someone who works in whatever role in finance. I don't think that, again, that entrepreneurship is something you can easily see unless we talk about exit opportunities all over again.
Okay, but would you not argue finance is a lot more transferable, the skills you get into a business?
In terms of running a business,
I was actually going to bring that up, actually. So, one thing that I would say finance does have is that, you get to, I feel like it's in the upskilling, there might be more opportunities to develop yourself as a person.
Yeah.
Whereas in tech, you mentioned you're remote, which is great, right?
Yeah.
But are you meeting people? Are you developing as a person? Are you just putting behind the screen? Like, do you not think that might be a massive hindrance where, like, as a tech person, you're not actually developing as a person? What's your thoughts on that?
That's a valid point, and I do think that's something that I have thought about, especially because I do get asked that a lot. Because I am fully remote, how often do I see my team? Is there an opportunity to network? Luckily, I work for a company that does enable that sort of space to network and to meet other individuals. But of course, I know it's very different to being in like an office culture where you get to actually like thrive in that sense. I definitely think that when it comes to finance, they definitely win when it comes to that element of being able to develop yourself personally. And that's why I've had to invest in hobbies outside of work in order to accommodate for the lack of self-development that I have in my career. Obviously, I'm not speaking for everybody in tech. There are roles like project managers. They speak to everybody. So I would argue that they even have more social skills than someone who works in finance, to be honest, because they're responsible for a lot and they have to know how to kind of speak to different people and they have to know how to lead a project. And so, yeah, it can differ. But yeah, I would argue that finance definitely does allow you to develop yourself in that sense.
I think
more than tech.
Yeah, very well answered from Daniel. I think when it comes to finance, right, I think for a lot of roles, things you do, the work you do is so transferable into business, so transferable into entrepreneurship. If you're in the likes of accounting, right, you're learning how a business makes up its accounts. And not only are you learning how a business makes up their accounts, you're looking at massive businesses. So you're working with massive numbers that your small business that you probably want to start eventually, most likely not reach. So you're working these massive numbers, you're gaining these skills on how to account for these big businesses. So then when you go and run your own business, it's going to be like clockwork. So you imagine you're going from working with hundreds of thousands of millions of billions of pounds to probably working with, 3,000, tens of thousands. Your accounting work will be pretty much very easy for you. And not only that, you'll know the mistakes that these big corporations make. You'll know the good things that they do, and then you can transfer that into your own business. I just don't think, as much as tech has a lot of transferable skills, I don't think it's as real world and as business entrepreneurial as business applicable as finance.
I disagree. Let's talk about Sam Altman, for example, right? He was CEO of OpenAI, and I'm pretty sure that was bought out. Can't remember the details too much, but would he have got into that stage if he didn't work in tech and if he didn't think to start ChatGPT, for example? I think a lot of big tech companies that you see nowadays, they are literally examples and living proof of being able to work in a technical role. For example, Mark Zuckerberg, right? He was a computer science student at Harvard, and then that's where he started Facebook. He wouldn't have been able to, he would still maybe have been able to create Facebook, right, later on down the line. But the connection between somebody's career in tech and their ability to be an entrepreneur, I would argue is closely linked and is more closely linked than somebody who works in finance. Like a lot of these technologies that you yourself, Luca, probably invest in on Trading 212 kind of showcase that you can be very entrepreneurial in tech. I don't invest in finance companies on Trading 212. I invest in tech companies for a reason, clearly. So that just goes to show that tech kind of dominates. No?
You made the point of Altman, who's founded OpenAI, right? So yeah. I think that's a great case study you've used there. But let's look at the likes of Jeff Bezos, right? Mm-hmm. Started one of the biggest tech corporations globally Amazon, where did he start? Finance, Wall Street, investment management firm. So yes, there are fantastic options. There are fantastic transferable skills you get from tech. But I think a lot of the big people who even start tech companies have started in finance. They get the inspiration, they learn the skills, and then apply that to their own business. That's one of the key reasons for why Amazon is very successful.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's on a case-by-case basis then, but I just don't think I think the link between working in tech and obviously running your own tech company is very close in comparison to like finance, I would say.
Cool. So finally, just to run off then, I've got a timer, 5 minutes here. You've got 5 minutes to defend your corner. Tech versus finance, so owners decide who wins. You got 5 minutes. When the time's up, time's up. So I'd recommend going at it as best you can.
Tech will always beat finance because a single engineer can build a system that is used by millions of people. We've seen it with the likes of ChatGPT and OpenAI. We've seen it with the likes of Amazon. We've seen it with the likes of Facebook, Meta now. We've seen it with the likes of other technology companies like Apple, Microsoft. I don't even need to go further down the list. And I also think tech beats finance simply because tech definitely powers the economy more than finance does, I would argue anyways. People who obviously work in finance, whether it's wealth management or asset management, are managing wealth. And those people are probably spending and investing a lot of their money in tech. So I definitely think tech takes the cake. And in terms of being able to get to a six-figure salary quicker, again, tech beats it. I'm living proof. I got to six figures by the time I had 2 years of experience in tech. I got to six figures by the time I had 2 years of experience in tech. So I definitely think that tech is a fast way to get to six figures. And also it offers more work-life balance. I don't think I'll ever hear of an investment banking analyst that is fully remote and that has the same type of flexibility that I do. And lastly, I just think tech will always beat finance.
Run out of time here, Luke.
I'm hearing a lot of flexibility, and you keep on referring to investment banking. Investment banking is not the only role in finance. There's so many.
The rest are just irrelevant.
Okay, that's not true. That's not true. I mean, have you heard of Santander before? Have you heard of NatWest? Have you heard of HSBC?
Yes, commercial banking. Yes.
Commercial banking. Right. Okay, a role that can pay up to six figures, can pay more than beyond six figures, and you have this work-life balance. There's not only investment banking. Yes, investment banking is very intense in terms of the hours you have to do, but it also equally pays very well. There are roles across finance that pay very well as well, similar to tech, but are way less hours. So you can't just keep focusing on this investment banking role.
Yeah, but you will never get to that position as quickly as you could do in tech, and that will always be the truth.
Agreed,
so
but then I could say you guys don't have as much earning potential. Yes, in the short term, you guys might be quicker to get to that level, but who has the higher earning potential? Who can make the most money in their role in the long term? Who's going to do it?
Tech.
No. Finance.
It will always be tech.
Finance.
It will literally.
I say tech if you're an entrepreneur.
Contracting, that already clears anything you
Isn't
can
contracting
do in
short
terms of
term?
finance.
How is contracting guaranteed?
First of all, contracting is definitely not guaranteed, but that's why people do multiple contracts at the same time.
But don't you think it's you're risking your salary and risking your stability in terms of just searching for contracts because it's not guaranteed and you're not stuck there.
But you're earning like literally quite a bit of money to accommodate for that. So you can literally be on the bench and be in between contracts and be fine. You build a war chest. That's true. What a lot of contractors do.
That's true. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant option.
The same can be said for finance, actually. You can get laid off any day. Like, no industry is really protected from layoffs. So what? Do you think that you have more stability just because it's a permanent job? There's a lot of corporate politics that are involved across both of these areas, tech and finance. So the stability that you're talking about, I'm not sure if that's something you can solely rely on because we have layoffs. We have people who lose their job left, right, and center. So I don't think that's a fair point to make.
I mean, but then if you look at something like, you say layoffs, right, stability. But I just think with the qualifications you get and with how many, the variety of roles within finance, you're going to be arguably more stable because those qualifications are so prestigious, the ACA, the CIMA, the CFA qualifications. Even if you do get laid off, if you have that sort of qualification, you have that backing, you can go and move anywhere you want.
Yes, they are widely recognized, but tech certificates and tech qualifications can also be widely recognized, especially when we think of like the big three, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google. They all offer certifications that a lot of companies require in a lot of their roles. So
As recognized as the finance qualifications?
it's definitely, it doesn't have the same prestige, but I'm tired of this topic of prestige anyways, because to be honest, I don't think prestige really reflects your bank account. Obviously, everybody's goal is different. If you care to be prestige and to be known as someone who's like a partner at a bank, that's great. But I will chill at a more lower title, knowing that I have more flexibility and more freedom to move around. Can you even work from abroad if you work in finance?
Yeah,
No,
you can.
can't.
Yes, you can.
Barely.
Yes, you can.
3 seconds.
A lot of people in my company have moved abroad completely to work. Some people have even gone. They can take.
No,
they
I'm
take,
talking about
yes,
working
you can work.
remotely.
Yes, I think you can work from abroad. I know people who work from abroad. I work all the way out in Asia because you don't always have to be in person to work in
Okay,
in
sure.
accounting.
And that's why
roles.
you guys are getting called into the office 5 days a week.
Okay, and is that why?
And that's time. And that's time. Listen, who won that debate? You decide at home. Thank you so much.
Great debate.